trial. It was a jury trial. It opened on August 12 this year and ended 2 months ago, where the Arab Bank lost the case. We're done with liability. Now we have to prove damages. The damages are horrible. And let me tell you about one of them, Hannah Nachenberg and her family. Hannah Nachenberg is a young woman from New York who lives in Israel that in August 2001 decided to take her family to eat pizza in the Sbarro pizza place in Jerusalem. Shortly after she entered the restaurant, a suicide bomber from the Hamas, wearing exclusive vest, entered the restaurant and blew himself up. Everybody remembered the suicide bombing. Everybody remembered the famous sign of the Sbarro pizza place lies down on the floor and around it all the dead and the injured. Everybody remembered where it happened. It happened in the intersection between King George Street to Jaffa Street, the heart of the commercial district of Jerusalem. The same cell that was responsible for this suicide bombing was the one who blew up the Moment Cafe a while before, killing 18 young people, and the one that would blow up Hebrew University cafeteria a while later, ending up with the death of 7 young students. Hannah Nachenberg did not get killed in the attack. A metal pin entered her head and lined in her brain. She went into irreversible coma. She was hospitalized in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, and after many months, when the doctors saw there was no improvement in her situation, she was moved to a medical center in Israel. She is staying there until this day. Every day, her parents come to the hospital, sit near her bed, and pray. I've seen photos of Hannah's daughter, 5-year-old Sarah, dressed up in Purim costume, coming to show her mother how she dressed up in Purim that year. I've seen photos of Hannah's brother, dressed up in his tuxedo wedding suit, coming to show his sister how he'll dress up in his wedding day. Every single day, her parents come to the hospital, enter her room, sit near her bed, and pray. On behalf of Hannah Nachenberg and the rest of the families of the terror victims, we'll take the case against the Arab Bank until the end. Shortly after we filed this lawsuit, the Arab Bank immediately changed the way they were doing businesses. Not only the Arab Bank. This lawsuit sent a shockwave through the international banking system that no bank agreed anymore to open bank account to a designated terror organization like Hamas, Islamic Jihad, PLO, or Hezbollah. No bank agreed to provide financial services to Islamic charities that raise funds for designated terror organizations. And no bank agreed to provide financial services in terror zones like South Lebanon, like Gaza. There is no banking system in Gaza. This is why you see them smuggling money into Gaza with suitcases through the tunnels. And that caused Hamas a great deal of harm because they need to bring hundreds of millions of dollars into the Gaza Strip. They need this money first and foremost to support the population. The reason the population allowed Hamas in the recent war to use them as human shields, to send them to the top of the roofs to warn the IDF not to shoot missiles towards the buildings. The reason the population in Gaza allowed Hamas to shoot missiles towards Israel from their backyards, from their living rooms, from their kindergarten, from their hospitals, from their mosques, is because Hamas supports the population in Gaza and provides them with all services they need from cradle to grave for free. They give them free education, free medical services, free social services, free food in order to gain their loyalty, to continue carry out attacks against Israel from the civilian area. Hamas's military They have tens of thousands of soldiers, sometimes wear uniforms, sometimes they don't, but they always get paid on a monthly basis. Hamas has thousands of prisoners who are sitting in the Israeli jail, which Hamas provides their families and gives them thousands of dollars every month. Depends how many years your son got in jail, according to how many Israelis he killed. And Hamas built these sophisticated tunnels. They used to come from Egypt into Israel to smuggle terrorists, money, ammunition. Today they're going from Gaza into Israel to send over terrorists to kill Israelis. To maintain all these operations, all this infrastructure, Hamas needs hundreds of millions of dollars. So Hamas ran into a problem. They needed a bank that will allow them to transfer money into Gaza. They could not do it only with suitcases through the tunnels. So after a lot of efforts, they found one. They found a bank that did not care about anti-money laundering laws, a bank that did not care about anti-terrorism law, a bank that thought that he is above the law. It's one of the biggest banks in the world. It's called the Bank of China. The Bank of China agreed to open bank account to a Hamas terrorist who was sitting in Beijing and receiving money from the headquarters of Hamas in Syria, hundreds of thousands of dollars each month for years. The money was going from the Bank of China in New York, hitting the account of Shurafa in Beijing, and Shurafa was pulling the money out at the same day and sending it to his brother and father, other Hamas terrorists in Gaza. The counterterrorism division of the Israeli government went to China, met with the Central Bank of China, and urged them to close down the account. They told them where the money is coming from and where the money is going. But the Chinese said that Hamas is not a designated organization in China. There is no violation of the Chinese law, and therefore they have no intention to close down the account. So we were asked if we can take the Chinese to court. And we agreed because this is what we like to do. I always say that Citibank has a slogan. We're trying to make banking easier. We have a slogan. We're trying to make banking much harder to the terrorists. So we gathered terror victims that were killed or injured by the missile attacks from Gaza into Sderot, into other southern communities of the country. We gathered the families of the children that were massacred in Merkaz Arab Yeshiva terror attack in Jerusalem. We gathered families that lost their loved ones in suicide bombings in Tel Aviv, in Eilat. We took all these hundreds of victims and filed a $1 billion lawsuit against Bank of China in New York. This lawsuit drove the Chinese crazy. It was right before the Olympic Games. They sent us warning letters telling us to stop talking about the lawsuit. They warned us that by connecting their name to terror financing, we are destroying their reputation, we are ruining their names. They threatened us with a libel suit against us in China and with a criminal prosecution against us in China. This is why none of us is going to China any day soon. Then they filed a motion to dismiss the case. They say that the case should be heard in China. The law that should apply should be the Chinese law. And in any event, we don't have any evidence to support the case. In 1994 and 1997, 12 Iranian Jews that tried to cross the border from Iran to Afghanistan disappeared somewhere along the border. The Jewish agency representatives said that they never got in touch with them, they never found them. So the families went to the Iranian government to seek for information, but the Iranian government refused to give them any information. The families went and visited every jail in Iran. They went to every police station in Iran. They visited every hospital in Iran, asking if anybody knows what's happened to their sons, to their husbands, to their fathers. But nobody gave them any information. After some years, the families left Iran. Some of them moved to Israel. One family moved to LA. A neighbor of the family that moved to LA came to them and told them that while back in Iran, he was dealing with Evin prison, the major prison in Tehran, trying to sell them land. In the course of a business deal, he was invited to the jail to take a tour to learn what the needs of the prison are. He came to the jail, he took the tour, he was accompanied by one of the guards who took him along, and towards the end of the tour, they went downstairs 10 floors below ground. When they reached the 10th floor, the neighbor saw a very dark cell. He approached the gate, and he suddenly recognized the son of his neighbors that disappeared some years before. The boy was very excited. He thought that finally somebody came to rescue him. He approached the gate, but the neighbor was very afraid, didn't say a word, and took a step back. In the end of the tour, they went upstairs, 10 floors up, and the neighbor, who couldn't hold himself, very carefully asked the guard, who were the prisoners that he saw in the dark cell? And the guard told him that they were Jewish prisoners who tried to escape from Iran. So now we know that these 12 missing Iranian Jews might be alive, sitting in a jail in Iran, have been tortured, and we needed to raise public awareness for the case. We find a High Court petition in the Israeli Supreme Court urging the Mossad to go and inquire what's happened to these missing Jews. After a year long, the Mossad came back to court and said that despite all their efforts, they could not find any information about the missing Jews. So our next trial was to file a lawsuit in the United States against Iranian official. But in one condition, according to the law, we needed to catch the Iranian official in the United States and serve him with a lawsuit. Every day we get more and more calls from more and more terror victims who want to fight back, who are seeking justice, who more than anything else in the world don't want to be victims anymore. And we are dedicated to help them. Just last week, I met with the parents of one of the teenagers that was kidnapped and realized that the whole kidnapping cost $60,000 for the kidnappers to buy 2 cars, 2 M16s, and 2 pistols. That's all it took. They got the money from El Noor charity in Gaza. It's funded by Hamas and kidnapped the teenagers. Then I met with the parents of a small baby that got ran over by a terrorist. They were waiting 2 years to have this baby. Terrorism did not come to a halt. We are dedicated to help these parents to fight back. We established Rakadin, Israel Law Center, to take all these hundreds of cases and file them in an orderly manner in the courts around the world. It's a non-profit organization. All donations are tax deductible. You can help. We are dedicated to fight terrorism in court because we are doing what governments are unable to do. Governments cannot sue other governments. Governments have political restraints. They have foreign relations they have to take into consideration. They have international treaties that are signed off. They have to be politically correct. We don't. We are private lawyers who represent private people that have one goal: to bankrupt terrorism, one lawsuit at a time. We will fight terrorism in court because we can win the cases. We're doing it because we are winning the cases. We are taking the money from the one who perpetrated the attacks and give it to the one who deserved it most, the terror victims. We are doing it because we don't have any other choice. We live in Israel. We want to send our kids to school and to make sure they're coming back safe. We want to ride our buses, we want to sit in our cafes, we want to shop in our malls. We don't want to send our kids to fight down there in Gaza. They are only 20 years old. We don't want to run to the shelters 3 times a day, some of us 9 times a day. We want to live safely in our country. And yes, this is our country. Like happened in Egypt with the 7 soldiers in the recent war. We're sick and tired going to funerals and watching little children saying Kaddish on their parents. And even worse, watching parents saying Kaddish on their children. But mostly, we are sick and tired sitting in the military courts, watching the defendants from the Hamas who are looking at the judge's eyes, smiling at him and promising him that they will win. They will not win. We will win. We will win because we are fighting for our national survival. The Torah told us, "Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa." Don't stand idly by our brother's blood. I will not stand idly by our brother's blood. I cannot afford it. The state of Israel cannot afford it. The Western world cannot afford it. You cannot afford it. Thank you very much.